Okay. You ready?
We're ready.
I ngā mane I ngā reo e rauranga tira mā, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Ko waiau, he mokopuna hau o te tai rāwhiti, taranaki maunga me ngaitahu iwi. No te hapu o tūwhaki iriora, aro whenua awaroa, a raukuku hoki, no koterana me airani o Pūtipuna, ko Tyler Ngātai tōku ingoa. My name is Tyler Ngātai, and I am Māori, Scottish, and Irish descent. I live in Aotearoa, Christchurch, and am a current practice lead for Taiohi.
Ngā mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. Ko waiau, no tēnau ahau, he tangata Tiriti ahau, ko James in tōku ingoa. My tupuna rest across the globe, predominantly in Cornwall and Wales, and in more recent times, my ancestors rest here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I honour and acknowledge Te Tiriti o Waitangi as my turanga waiwai, my place to stand in this nation. And I am here today resting on the mana of those who go before me, and the mana of those I represent as the CEO of Taiohi. Thank you for the opportunity to present to this select committee. We would like to acknowledge the huge number of people, particularly young people, who have submitted their views on this bill. Today we speak on behalf of our entire sector, thousands of people who work day in, day out with young people and whose practice is grounded in Te Tiriti o Waitangi. As the peak body for youth development, the vision of Taiohi is to create an empowered ecosystem of youth development where rangatahi thrive. We should not have to go through this process. It is a dangerous precedent that a party that represents just 5.55% of the electoral vote can disrupt the foundations of our country. We have been concerned that speaking today would in some way be used to legitimise or justify this bill and the calls to undermine Te Tiriti. However, it is because the Treaty Principles Bill is so fundamentally undermines the ethical practice of youth work and risks the well-being of young people of Aotearoa that we feel compelled to speak.
The practice of youth work in Aotearoa is explicitly founded on a commitment to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Our structures and mahi reflect the relationship between tangata whenua and tangata tiriti. This partnership and the work that flows from it strengthens how we engage and support young people from across Aotearoa. Ara Taiohi a kaitiaki of mana Taiohi, an approach of positive youth development informed by international best practice and te ao Māori, as well as the Code of Ethics for Youth Workers. Mana Taiohi and Code of Ethics are Te Tiriti in action, taking our lead from an Indigenous perspectives that have shaped our young people for generations. Te Tiriti is the foundation of our ethical practice, our professional association, Korowai Tupu, and our youth work qualifications. Research, evidence, and experience consistently reinforces that this practice approach results in better outcomes for young people, whānau, and communities. The mere introduction of this bill undermines our practice, questions the identity of youth work and tangata whenua.
Youth workers come from an incredibly diverse background and work with beautiful and unique young people. Experienced and emerging youth workers work in a Te Tiriti context, and it is central to our identity as practitioners in Aotearoa. Each journey is unique and challenging. Pākehā youth workers, especially those who start their journey from a monocultural context, repeatedly report that understanding Te Tiriti is personally and professionally transformative. It enables them to better connect with all young people and to journey with young people whose behaviours are a natural consequence of a system that continues to oppress them. It is naive to think that this bill, were it to proceed, would not change Te Tiriti. The proposed principles would fundamentally affect how Te Tiriti is interpreted and the place it holds in our society. It would significantly disrupt how youth is understood and practiced in Aotearoa, and it would be a step backwards for us as a sector. There is a misconception out there that this is a Māori issue. Every New Zealander has a place in Te Tiriti, and it cannot and must not be changed unilaterally. It creates a partnership and relationship that allows us all to grow and succeed. Today, in preparing our remarks and speaking for all our members, we have reflected on the journey of creating and thriving within a Te Tiriti organisation and sector. This haerenga has been hard fought and full of difficult moments. We have learnt what it is to listen. We have learnt what it is to unpack ingrained ways of being and doing that harm. We have compromised, we've had wins and we've had losses, and we've had many, many misses. We have so much more to learn from each other, and we are stronger because of it. Mana Taiohi is an example of what is possible when we approach an issue through the lens of Te Tiriti. Prior to the creation of Mana Taiohi, our previous principles were good, informed largely by North American research that highlighted strengths and relationships and connections. But we can be proud as a nation that our new principles weave these international views with te ao Māori. It has resulted in a more holistic and transformative practice that works for young people, whānau, and communities. Should this bill proceed, we will see this transformative and world-leading way of practice systematically eroded.
Our identity stands in Te Tiriti. We strongly oppose the lack of due process and the exclusion of iwi, hapu, and youth voices in the development of this legislation that directly impacts young people and their communities. The bill, developed solely by minority interests, fails to recognise the critical importance of including those most affected in this decision-making process. A robust legislative process involves engaging with impacted communities, seeking expert advice to assess potential impacts, and conducting transparent reviews to uphold inclusivity and fairness. By bypassing these steps, this legislation silences the voices of Māori and rangatahi. It is a breach of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, which creates a platform for active collaboration, shared decision-making, and the safeguarding of rights and well-being for all. It also ignores international obligations, including those in the United Nations. The voices of young people are paramount in shaping the policies that will determine their future. Rangatahi have unique experiences, perspectives, and aspirations that are critical to creating an effective, equitable society, including their input and the input of those who work with them, not only fails to uphold the rights of our rangatahi, but perpetuates systemic inequities. Decisions made without the insight of young people often result in ineffective, one-dimensional policies that fail to address the complexity of their lives. There are many examples of youth-led initiatives supporting both youth workers that empower young people to be active contributors to their world. It is our responsibility as people in positions of power and influence to provide a platform for young people to shape policies and programs that resonate with their needs and aspirations. These initiatives underscore the transformative power of involving rangatahi in processes that directly affect their lives and those young people to come.
This process has been extremely damaging. Challenging settled relationships and partnerships creates a sense of anxiety for our whole society and, most importantly, our rangatahi. This is an attack on the rights of tangata whenua, particularly mokopuna and rangatahi Māori. This bill is part of a wider movement to undermine the role that Te Tiriti plays in our legislative framework. Since the introduction of this bill, sadly, we have heard too many stories of young people who have experienced a rise in racism and who feel their identity is being stripped away. The predictable consequence of this will be increased trauma, grief, anger, and pain. This costs us. This costs communities, not just financially, this costs us lives. We call on this committee not only to recommend that this bill is withdrawn, but that future constitutional discussions are centred in our participatory and inclusive process. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora koutou, thank you for your presentation. We've got time for one question, and that is going to be from Debbie Ngāleoke.
Actually, I'm going to hand it to him. Oh, that's okay for Chair.
I'll check with Duncan. No, I think it's appropriate. I'll go to Tim.
Thank you.
Kia ora, thanks for that. Look,
No, sorry.
You're not rangatahi.
Sorry, I think Duncan, just given the submitters, I'll go to Tamitha, and if there's time at the end, I'll give you a chance, but hopefully it's...
Kia ora, I'll get straight to the question. What can we do to make it easier for rangatahi to submit? Obviously on this one, we know where this bill is going, but in future, for all of the decisions that influence rangatahi, what can we do to make sure that their voice is powerfully heard and listened to?
I think I would start by saying, before a bill is introduced, look at the processes that already exist, both in communities and within government, that enable youth voice to be part of what goes even that far. That will mean that what is presented when it gets to the legislative process, when we get to subcommittee processes, et cetera, and there's been a large number of rangatahi that have submitted at this stage, but it will ensure what they are submitting on is actually building on youth voice right from its foundations. I think the principles of mana Taiohi that we referred to before, if those are embraced, we'll see more rangatahi empowered and able to participate in democratic processes.
Sure, guys. Thank you for wrapping up very succinctly. Thank you for your submission, Dave. Appreciate you being here, and again for all the work that you guys do for us. We'll now move on and see if we...
And a big thank you to Stacey for saving our bacons. Seriously. Yeah, I'm sorry about earlier, guys. That was not good on my part. Okay, so can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Okay, just double checking because now I'm nervous. I'm like, whoa! It's like doing live IT and tech support in real time. Okay, right. So this submission predominantly was about youth development and how the treaty principles are going to be interpreted in the future by the government is going to impact young people. And I think a really good bill to refer to for this one is the repeal of Section 7AA. And I don't know if everyone saw last week's stream where I absolutely blew a foo-foo valve going over what Karen was proposing. But yes, effectively, that bill, Section 7AA, which was promoting participation between the Crown and iwi and hapu with Oranga Tamariki, focused on strengthening partnerships and support with iwi and hapu to keep kids out of state care. So the treaty principles, as they stand now, the 3 Ps, which are partnership, participation, and protection, are really important, not just for Māori people, but also for people who are not Māori. So it gives them a practical basis on how to implement and how to respect and honour Te Tiriti in a way that promotes equitable outcomes for everyone. And I really liked their recommendation at the end of that, at the end of their submission, improving public consultation. And I think we need to also include youth when we think about how can we improve the consultation process, because kids are impacted by bills, whether we like it or not, right? So it's important that we educate kids at school in terms of how can they submit on something, because even though they may not be old enough to vote, right, that doesn't mean a bill is not going to impact them. They should be able to have a say if a bill is going to impact them. So, yeah, another thing I'd like to say too is that this is my first time watching all of these submissions. So usually every week when I do the show, I like to have lots of notes prepared in advance. I'm literally just typing out points as I'm watching the submissions coming in. So you're getting essentially my 2 cents as I'm seeing the footage. Any thoughts, Ray?
Again, it's like leave it to the experts. I've read the impact statements. Maybe my recall isn't as great as it used to be, but there are already systems in place, and they're just not being honoured or respected by those that want to change things to suit their speculation nation, but to suit their private interests, not the interests of the people they supposedly govern.
What do you think of the question, though, that was asked by Tabitha Paul when she said that, what can we do to include youth? What's your opinion on that? What do you think about that question?
Well, even just cutting some of the gameplay of politics is so much game playing, and to the point where it was really exciting to see a different chairperson telling somebody to sit down and essentially be quiet, because they're so used to interrupting everyone and not being pulled up on it, because it's a game to them. With a little less of that, you can speak more or less plainly. You don't have to dumb down language for young people. The more you respect and treat them as an adult, the more they can grow into it. They respect you. They understand that relationship. You have their attention. They have your attention, and that is as valuable as what you write on the paper. As when a young person knows that they are truly heard, they'll speak their mind, and it might be something you never even knew you needed to hear. So, what systems are in place, I'm not entirely sure. My mission this year is totally to get more involved in community. I've decided I don't like the idea of community service as being a punishment. It needs to be a service. Like most of the, I'll just say this, so to speak, this type of government's rhetoric is about nothing's for free. Everyone just to work. I got here by working hard, etc. And for those who are in job seeker support, possibly can work, give them 10 to 20 hours of community service if it's available. It's good for us all. It builds their confidence. They feel like they have achieved something. And I've got some friends who are starting community groups for things like victim support, and there's a lot of good things happening. I'm inspired by this conversation that needed to happen, and it's good to see the youth out there. So, I'll do my research when I'm not busy
doing tech support.
Tech support, trade support, or just I get so upset sometimes. They'll be like, "This is happening," and then I was actually just crying yesterday afternoon hearing about the potential for we're going to remove genetic engineering labels on food and patenting of seeds. And I understand that this isn't just conspiracy theory, because some of these companies that might be involved have done it.
I think that's a really good point you bring up there about community service, and that's where the 3 Ps of the way how the treaty is currently interpreted could really come into play. Helping to support our Māori rangatahi participate more in society and to be a contributing positive factor, and not just for Māori youth, but also for Pākehā youth, working together and upholding those 3 Ps, because it doesn't just apply to Māori, it applies for everyone.
Yeah.
Partnership, participation, and protection.
And so I'm 36 now, and in my schools we learnt proper practice of with harakeke and all sorts of things that you don't hear much about now.
Yep.
You know, if somebody has to double down and go live on a marae for a year and really get in touch with, speak to their tupuna, then that's great. But I'd love to go live on a marae until I knew the language.
Yep. I'm quite interested to know what chat thinks if they want to participate in this conversation. Any thoughts, guys? I'll just give you guys a minute or so. Any thoughts?
Think away.
Hopefully I haven't scared everyone with the bad beginning of the show.
Well, so the other weekend I did step in on your, what do you say? You went off about
Karen Shaw.
And that kind of helped, because I thought, we want this to be very official TV show and mind our language, mind our personal opinions, etc. And I'm like, well, if we're not too worried about you speaking your mind there, then I should be all right.
Yeah, no, it's sometimes it's important to just be blunt and to the point, especially when we're looking at bills that can have really big consequences for society. It's like just let it out. Maybe don't go as hard as I did, but let it out. Okay.
Yeah. Well. Anything from chat? Because it's also all these fast track bills. There are bills designed to change things, to allow things to ignore due process. I can see some legit benefit in that, but it's always being used, blah blah blah. So I want to make sure that we're following process, respecting process. Change it if you can.
So we'll go into the next vid.
Thanks for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to our Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, News Guide, The Order Paper Podcast. YouTube, Twitch, Instagram.